They tried to break you without saying a word. They looked at you like you were nothing, laughed behind your back and expected you to fold, but you didn't. You kept your silence. You held your head high. And that burned them more than any insult ever could. You see, the most powerful revenge in this life isn't loud. It's silent. It's not chaos. It's peace. It's not destroying someone with your hands or words. It's destroying them with your success, with your presence, with your refusal to stoop to their level. There comes a moment in life where you realize your energy is too valuable to be wasted on pettiness. Let them gossip, let them lie, let them throw dirt on your name. Because when you rise, when you grow, when you shine without ever having to fight back, that's when they feel it the most. That's when they sit alone in the dark, haunted not by your words, but by your absence, by your evolution. So no, you don't need to attack them. You just need to outgrow them. You just need to live in such a way that your peace becomes their punishment. Your progress becomes their pain. And your silence becomes their loudest lesson. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct might be to speak up, to defend yourself, to correct them, to put them in their place. That's what the world has taught us. Don't let anyone talk down to you. Don't let anyone make you feel small. But what if I told you that silence can scream louder than any shouted word? That sometimes the most devastating response is no response at all. Because silence, it forces people to sit with themselves. It gives them no distraction, no argument, no emotional fuel to feed off. They don't get the satisfaction of seeing you angry, flustered, or broken. You rob them of their control. You turn the volume up on their own insecurities. And in the quiet that you leave behind, they start to hear the echoes of their own disrespect. They start to question themselves. They replay the moment, looking for a reaction they never got. That's power. Real power. It's the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exists. It's the kind that moves in silence and shakes people to their core, because when they expect you to fight and instead you rise without a word, that's when they feel it most. There's something deeply unsettling about someone who doesn't flinch. When you're calm in the face of chaos, you become unreadable, unshakable. That confuses people who rely on your reaction to validate their actions. They want to control your narrative. They want to say, see, look how emotional they are, or I knew they'd lash out. But when you give them nothing, you strip them of their storyline. You don't give them the scene they were hoping to star in. You step back and let them act alone. That's where the silence becomes sharp. It cuts deeper than confrontation ever could. People expect noise. They're used to drama, yelling, fighting. It's how they measure impact. So when you don't deliver that, when you remain grounded, eyes forward, unbothered, that's what messes with them. They realize they don't have access to you anymore. And that realization is painful, because it means you're in control now. It means they no longer hold the strings. You're not just ignoring them. You've outgrown them. And that silence, it's not empty. It's full of discipline, wisdom, and strength they all never understand. Your silence speaks when your words would only fall on deaf ears. Not everyone deserves an explanation. Not everyone earns the right to your voice. Sometimes silence is how you teach people that you are not to be played with, not to be pulled into their chaos. You are not here to be anyone's emotional punching bag or target for projection. You are here to grow, to rise, to evolve. And part of that evolution is learning that silence is a boundary, a firm one. You don't owe them your energy, your justification, or your defense. Because when you argue with someone who's already decided to misunderstand you, you lose twice. First, you lose your peace. Then, you lose your dignity trying to make sense to someone who thrives on confusion. Silence protects you. It puts a wall between you and their nonsense. It teaches you how to conserve your power for things that matter, for growth, for purpose, for peace. And once you learn that not every insult needs a response, not every wound needs to be avenged, you start winning silently. And that victory, it's undeniable. Silence doesn't mean weakness, it means mastery. It means you've reached a level where you no longer seek validation and confrontation. You don't need to win arguments to feel whole. You don't need to prove your point to feel seen. You've realized that your energy is currency, and you've stopped giving it away to people who bankrupt your spirit. When you respond in silence, you're not surrendering. You're choosing peace over pettiness. That kind of restraint comes from deep inner work. It comes from knowing who you are and refusing to let someone else's noise disrupt your clarity. People who don't understand that will call it avoidance. They'll say you're running, but you know better. You're not running, you're rising. And the higher you rise, the quieter it gets. That silence becomes sacred. It becomes the space where you hear your own truth more clearly than ever. It becomes the place where you meet your highest self, the version of you that doesn't flinch, doesn't fold, and doesn't fall into the trap of trying to fix people who never intended to change. There will always be those who try to provoke you just to see if they can shake you. They'll poke, prod, test your patience, not because they care about you, but because they need to feel powerful. But the moment you stop reacting, they lose their grip. You become unpredictable. And that scares them because they don't know what you're thinking. They can't figure out if they've hurt you, if they've succeeded, if they've gotten under your skin. And that confusion, that eats away at them. Your silence creates a void, and in that void, they confront themselves, not your words, themselves. And that's far more painful than any insult you could have delivered. That's how you destroy someone without ever lifting a finger. You let their own actions echo in their head. You become the lesson they didn't want to learn. And the beauty is, you stayed silent, composed, in control. You didn't lose yourself trying to fight a battle that wasn't worth fighting. You stood tall, spoke nothing, and let your energy say everything. There is a quiet kind of revenge that comes from healing. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just moves. Slowly, confidently, like a wave washing away everything that no longer serves you. And that includes people. When you stop engaging, stop chasing, stop trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you, you become free. That freedom, your peace, it unsettles the people who thrived on your pain. They can't touch you anymore. And that hurts them more than any clapback ever could. Because silence says, I've moved on. It says, I'm not even thinking about you anymore. It says, you no longer matter in my world. And that's a kind of destruction that doesn't leave debris, it leaves distance. A clear message, you don't belong in my life anymore. Not because I hate you, but because I love myself enough to walk away. That silence is rooted in strength, in self-respect. And in that silence, you win. Every time, because you didn't let them drag you down. You rose above them. And you never look back. They clapped when you were small. They smiled when you were struggling. They felt good when you were beneath them, because your pain fed their pride. But the moment you started growing, the moment you dared to dream bigger, speak with confidence, walk with purpose, they got uncomfortable. That's the truth people don't like to admit. Not everyone wants to see you win. Some people loved the version of you that doubted yourself, second-guessed your worth, and stayed quiet in rooms where you belonged. They never expected you to rise. They expected you to stay low, right where they left you. And when you didn't, when you chose healing over bitterness, discipline over distraction, purpose over people, it hurt them. Not because you hurt them directly, but because your evolution reminded them of their stagnation. Your growth highlighted their excuses. And now the very presence of your progress makes them feel exposed. That's why they distance themselves. That's why the support fades when the spotlight starts pointing at you. Because some people aren't clapping for you, they're clapping for who you used to be. And when that version disappears, so does their applause. When you level up, it's not just about success. It's about shedding the old version of yourself that others had grown comfortable with. And the moment that happens, people start saying you've changed, as if change isn't the goal, as if staying the same was ever the plan. They say you're acting different now. You're distant. You're not the same person. And you know what? They're right. You're not. You outgrew environments that weren't feeding your soul. You stopped entertaining conversations that didn't challenge you. You stopped explaining yourself to people who were never listening. And that threatens those who are still stuck in the same cycles. They don't miss you. They miss the you that didn't know your worth. The you that settled. The you that kept yourself small to make others feel big. But once you realize you were never meant to shrink yourself for anyone's comfort, you stop apologizing for your glow up, because the ones who truly love you will evolve with you, and the ones who don't, let them watch from a distance. You'll notice the shift when your priorities change. You'll start working on yourself, reading more, praying more, showing up for your future self. And suddenly, the invitations stop coming. People who used to call daily go silent. Those who once said, "I'm proud of you," now say, "You think you're better than us." It's not jealousy in the obvious sense. It's a silent grief. They're mourning the control they once had over you. They're mourning the version of you that needed their validation. And now that you've learned to validate yourself, their opinions hold no weight. That's heavy for people who were used to being your anchor, even when they were sinking ships. So they pull back, not because you did anything wrong, but because you did something right. You elevated. You chose growth over comfort. And that made them uncomfortable. You chose self-worth over fitting in, and that made you out of reach. And the higher you climb, the more distant the noise becomes. The same people who once whispered in your ear now watch in silence, because they can't reach the version of you that no longer lives in their shadow. Sometimes your growth becomes the very thing that breaks the bond. It's painful, yes, but necessary. When you level up mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you start seeing things clearly. You recognize manipulation quicker. You sense energy shifts. You no longer confuse loyalty with attachment. And in that awareness, you begin to pull back from people who never intended to grow with you. They may accuse you of being selfish, cold, or too good for them. But they never saw the nights you spent doubting yourself, praying for clarity, fighting silent battles just to keep moving. They never saw the effort it took to rise. So now that you have, they're offended. Not because you hurt them, but because you stopped needing them. And here's the truth. Not everyone is meant to go where you're going. Some people were only designed for the chapter you already closed. Holding on to them would mean holding yourself back. And when your vision gets bigger, your circle naturally gets smaller. That's not a loss. That's alignment. They won't say it out loud, but your glow bothers them. The way you walk now with confidence, the way you speak now with clarity, the way you carry yourself with grace and authority. It unsettles those who benefited from your insecurity, because now they can't gaslight you. They can't guilt you into staying small. You've broken out of the mold they tried to keep you in. And when you level up like that, authentically, unapologetically, you don't have to attack anyone. You don't have to throw shade. Your very existence becomes a reminder of what they could have done but didn't, of what they could have become but chose not to. That realization stings. That's why they talk behind your back. That's why they make passive-aggressive comments. Because your elevation forces them to look at themselves. And many won't like what they see. You didn't change for revenge. You changed for survival or purpose. And now your presence alone is enough to destroy the illusions they once had about you. The most powerful move you can ever make is to rise without telling anyone, to heal in private, to grow in silence, to show up months later so transformed, so focused, so unbothered that they no longer recognize you. That's how you destroy them without ever lifting a finger. You didn't retaliate, you didn't beg, you didn't explain, you just elevated. You outgrew their conversations, their drama, their low standard, and you did it all while keeping your integrity. That's what hurts them most, because they expected your downfall. They waited for you to quit. They tried to bury you, but they didn't know you were a seed. And now that you're blooming, now that you've become something they can't ignore, they're forced to watch in silence from a distance. And the more you keep rising, the more they'll feel it, not because you rubbed it in their face, but because your growth refuses to be dimmed. You didn't break anyone. You just stopped breaking yourself. And that alone was enough. Some people will try to pull you into their storm just to escape their own. They'll bring drama to your doorstep, chaos to your calm, and then act like you're the problem when you refuse to let them in. That's why protecting your peace has to be non-negotiable. You've worked too hard to find this stillness inside of you. You've cried too many nights, wrestled with too many demons, and fought too many silent battles to let someone come in and undo all of it in a moment. You're not the same person who used to explain themselves to everyone. You're not the same soul that would shrink just to keep the peace in a room full of conflict. Now you guard your spirit. because you've learned that peace isn't just a feeling, it's a responsibility. And if you don't defend it, people will walk all over it like it's nothing. They'll take your kindness for weakness, your silence for submission. But the real ones, the wise ones, they know peace is power. It's the strongest position to stand in when everything around you is trying to shake you. And when you protect that peace like it's gold, you start living like you're rich in what really matters. People won't always understand your boundaries, but that's not your problem. Let them call you distant. Let them say you've changed. Let them say you don't care anymore, because what they're really saying is they can no longer access you like they used to. And that's a beautiful thing. You see, when you start putting your peace first, you stop picking up every phone call. You stop responding to every text. You stop feeling guilty for saying no. Because every time you say yes to someone who drains you, you say no to your own healing. You say no to your own growth. And you've done that for too long. You've carried people who would never carry you. You've shown up for people who wouldn't show up if your world was falling apart. So now you've decided, my peace is sacred, my time is sacred, my energy is sacred, my sensitivity is sacred, my people sacred, my commitment is sacred. You don't owe anyone access to your inner world just because you used to. That version of you that gave too much, that version didn't survive the storm. This one walks with intention and lets peace lead the way. It's not selfish to protect your peace. It's necessary, because peace is what keeps you sane in a world that's constantly trying to shake your foundation. It's what keeps your mind quiet in the middle of chaos, what allows you to hear your own voice when everyone else is shouting at you to be something else. People who don't value peace will never understand why you guard yours so closely. They think you're cold because you won't argue, They think you're arrogant because you stopped explaining. But the truth is, you've outgrown that noise. You've learned that peace is not something you find outside of yourself. It's something you build inside of you. And anything or anyone that threatens that inner peace doesn't belong. Not in your space, not in your heart, not in your life. You've done the work. You've cried the tears. You've walked through fire. And now the quiet you found within yourself, that sacred silence, it's not up for discussion. You've learned that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to react to every insult thrown your way. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay still. The moment you start treating your peace like it's gold, you stop entertaining situations that leave you emotionally bankrupt. You stop giving second chances to people who only bring first-class problems. You stop over-explaining your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you. It's a shift, a deep one, and it happens quietly. You stop showing up in places that feel heavy. You stop seeking validation from people who can't even validate themselves. You stop letting every little thing get to you, because now you understand the more peaceful you are, the more powerful you become. Peace isn't weakness, it's discipline. It's the ability to hold your tongue when you could destroy someone with your words. It's the decision to walk away instead of staying in a place that's killing your joy. It's the strength to say, this doesn't deserve my reaction, and actually mean it. That kind of peace doesn't come easy. It comes from pain, from trial, from transformation. And once you have it, you don't just hand it out, you protect it. You guard it like treasure, because that's exactly what it is. There will always be people who test your peace. They'll push you, disrespect you, try to provoke you. And for what? For a reaction. Because your calmness threatens their chaos. Your stillness exposes their unrest. Your control reveals their lack of it. But don't take the bait. Don't lower your energy just to match theirs. When you react, they win. When you retaliate, you step into their arena. And you weren't built to live in chaos. You were built to rise above it. So instead of reacting, respond with nothing. Instead of explaining, let your absence speak. Instead of arguing, let your peace echo. Because when you stop giving your attention to the noise, it stops having power over you. Let people think what they want. Let them say what they need to say. Your job isn't to change their mind. Your job is to protect your spirit. And sometimes the best way to do that is to walk away, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. And wisdom will always keep you rooted in peace. no matter how loud the world gets. The truth is, protecting your peace means you'll disappoint people. You'll lose friendships. You'll be misunderstood. But that's a small price to pay for the sanity, clarity, and freedom that peace brings. Because the more you protect it, the more you realize you never needed all that noise to feel alive. You never needed to argue to prove your worth. You never needed to overextend yourself just to be loved. Peace teaches you that what's for you will never bring confusion, that the right people will never force you to break your spirit just to keep their attention. And so you move different now. You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't entertain nonsense. You stay rooted in purpose, grounded in faith, and covered in calm. Because you've built something priceless within you. A quiet strength, a fire that doesn't burn everything around it, but keeps you warm through every storm. And from this day forward, anyone who wants access to your life has to go through the gate of your peace. If they can't honor it, they can't stay. Simple as that. There comes a moment in your life when you realize you've wasted too much time fighting battles that never built you, arguing with people who never cared to understand you, explaining yourself to those who already made up their minds. You've been pouring your energy into defending who you are instead of becoming who you're meant to be. And the truth is, while you're out here battling distractions, you're delaying your destiny. Because building requires peace, it requires focus. And you can't build your future while constantly trying to fix the past or chase people who walk away from your light. You weren't born to be at war with the world. You were born to create something lasting, something powerful. So when you stop fighting for attention, for validation, for approval, and instead start focusing on the vision inside of you, that's when everything changes. That's when the noise gets quiet. That's when you realize the real battle was never out there. It was inside. And now that you've won the war within, you can start building a life that speaks louder than any defense ever could. Every second you spend in unnecessary conflict is a second stolen from your purpose. It's a second you could have spent learning, growing, building something beautiful. You don't need to prove yourself to people who thrive off your reaction. Let them think what they want. Let them talk. Because while they're busy talking about you, you're building something they'll eventually have to watch. You don't need to clap back. You just need to clock in to your dreams, to your grind, to your mission. There's a peace that comes when you realize not every battle deserves your presence. Some things are just beneath you now. That's not arrogance, that's growth. That's wisdom. You're not running away, you're rising above. You're not weak for walking away. You're wise for choosing what truly matters. Because the more you mature, the less interested you become in being right, and the more focused you get on being impactful. You weren't put here to argue in circles. You were put here to create something that lasts long after the noise fades. Build in silence and let your results echo through the very rooms you were once doubted in. You have to decide, do you want to spend your life fighting for crumbs or building your table? There are people who live to bait you into conflict because that's all they know. They're addicted to drama, addicted to chaos. But you've got blueprints in your hand. You've got dreams that won't wait. You've got goals that require your full attention. You don't have time to throw stones when you're laying bricks. You don't have the energy to battle when you're building something sacred. Your family, your legacy, your healing, your calling, they all need you present. And every time you engage in something that doesn't align with that, you're pulling yourself off course. That's how people lose their way, by letting small things steal big opportunities. Don't let that be you. Keep your eyes forward, keep your feet planted, stay in your zone. Because at the end of the day, you'll never regret walking away from a battle that didn't deserve your brilliance. But you will regret neglecting your purpose to fight for things that should have never mattered. Not everyone is going to like your elevation. And that's fine. Not everyone is going to understand your silence, your distance, your refusal to engage in petty conflict, and that's okay too. You're not here to be liked by everyone. You're here to build something meaningful. And building requires a level of focus that looks like isolation to the outside world. It means skipping the argument so you can write that plan. It means ignoring the disrespect so you can prepare that business pitch. It means saying, I don't have time for this, and meaning it. That's the cost of growth. That's the price of building. You lose some people, you lose some fights, but what you gain is clarity. What you gain is power. You start to feel the difference between what's urgent and what's important. And what's important will never demand you to lose your peace, your dignity, or your vision. So next time someone tries to pull you into a storm, remind yourself, you're building. You've got things to do. You've got mountains to move. You've got dreams too big to waste on distractions. When you focus on building, your energy becomes sacred. You don't just give it away anymore. You start to ask yourself, does this conversation build me? Does this situation grow me? Does this connection align with where I'm going? And if the answer is no, you don't entertain it. That's not cold. That's called discipline. And discipline is the currency of dreams. Anyone can fight. Anyone can argue. That takes nothing. But building, that takes consistency. Patience, vision. So many people are out here looking for fights to prove they're strong, but the real strength lies in creating something nobody can take from you. Your peace, your passion, your progress. That's your fortress. And every day you build it, you become more unshakable. You don't need to react when you've already outgrown the room. You don't need to respond when your life is already giving the loudest answer. So stay focused, stay grounded, because battles fade, but what you build, that lasts. Battling burns you out. Building fills you up. One leaves you drained, the other makes you dangerous in the best way. When you choose to build over battle, your name starts traveling places your voice never even had to reach. People will see what you're doing, feel your elevation, and have no choice but to respect it, even if they never say it out loud, because results don't need defending. When you become the kind of person who lets their life speak, you stop showing up for pointless fights. You start showing up for purpose, for passion, for alignment. And that's when you really become untouchable. Not because people stop coming at you, but because they can't reach you anymore. You're operating on a whole new level now. You've changed the game by leaving the ring. You've moved from fighter to creator, from defender to builder. And every brick you lay, every seed you plant, every chapter you write in silence, that's your legacy forming. That's your future solidifying. And that's how you win, quietly, powerfully, without ever throwing a single punch. There's a special kind of justice that doesn't come through your voice. It comes through their silence, through the moments when they sit alone and finally hear the echo of what they did to you. You don't need to scream. You don't need to explain. You don't need to break yourself down trying to make someone see the damage they cause, because one day their guilt will speak louder than you ever could. It'll creep in late at night in the quiet spaces where there's no one left to distract them. It'll show up when they see your name but know they no longer have access to your heart. That's when the real pain hits. Not when you cursed them out, not when you walked away angry, but when you disappeared in peace. When you healed, grew, evolved, and never looked back. That's when they'll finally feel it, because guilt doesn't need a stage.